What's up? Welcome back to Nostalgia. Dave here with another pod. What's going on in pop culture right now? This week, my best music of 2023. 3 segments for that. My top 10 albums of the year, my top 10 songs of the year, and for the first time, my top 10 K-pop songs of the year as well. So see the time codes below for each of those top 10s, 3 top 10s in total. Of course, let me know what you think, and make sure you come back for my top 10 movies and top 10 TV shows of the year as well, coming soon, and of course the regular scheduled pod programming as expected. And of course, subscribe, youtube.com/nostalgiapod, linktree.com/nostalgiapod, see the links below, see the Spotify playlist below, let me know it's good. Let's get into the best music of 2023. What's up? Welcome back to Nostalgia. Dave here with my top 10 K-pop songs of 2023, talking the best K-pop of 2023. By my count, I listened to about 45 different K-pop releases this year, which I felt was more than adequate to actually make a top 10 K-pop song list because I was really into this year. I thought we had a banner year with K-pop. Really exciting for a number of reasons that I'll get into. So really happy to kind of go through these top 10 songs as well as some honorable mentions as well. But before I do that, of course, make sure you come back for my top 10 albums and top 10 songs of 2023 coming soon. Of course, those are all genre lists, not just K-pop. But yeah, before we talk about the songs themselves, I think I just want to talk about the K-pop year, right? I think there's a few notable milestones that happened this year with the industry. You know, we're kind of well in the swing of that, quote, 4th generation of K-pop. So we have all these new young groups who continue to be very ascendant and very successful and really are now leading the way. You know, look no further than what New Jeans did this year. New Jeans will be coming up later on my list. No shocker there. But New Jeans kind of dominating, right? So much so that when they did their debut live performance in the United States at Lollapalooza in Chicago, the videos made it seem like it was the biggest set of the whole festival. It was gigantic. And just really the consistency of the releases, both with the OMG single release at the beginning of the year and then the Get Up EP in the summer, they just never went away. Also on Hybe, their label mates, LE SSERAFIM, continued to do make big noise. I think in general too that the touring that we started to see with groups a little bit more experienced than New Jeans and LE SSERAFIM was also quite eye-opening. You had aespa going on their first world tour. You had ENHYPEN doing big numbers with their tour. I think you're seeing groups are now getting to a touring stage from in the K-pop side faster than ever. Like you're seeing young groups like ENHYPEN play the Tokyo Dome very quickly, you know, despite being a new group. The sales numbers continue to rise. You know, we're so far beyond the BTS and Blackpink are the only ones who do numbers. It's so much farther beyond that, and the new groups are really quickly kind of developing those identities. You know, I think a big storyline, of course, though, was those more established groups, right? Of course, the BTS members all doing their solo albums and then going on their military service trips, of course. That is well underway for all the members now. And, you know, I think the BTS solo albums were pretty interesting throughout the course of the year in terms of how they were this... really just because some of them more than others, but they showed like different sides of the various BTS members that we didn't get within the BTS albums. Also, of course, you had the conclusion of Blackpink's Born Pink World Tour, the biggest K-pop tour of the year, which was obviously mammoth tour, right? And Twice had a gigantic tour as well this year. So like kind of like the two big titans on the female side of things continue to have gigantic years. And of course, very recently we had the Blackpink contract renewal, which I talked about recently in a separate video. And that was, I think, a big talking point, right? Like Blackpink's contract is up after the customary 7-year term. Will they renew? In what capacity will they return? And that was certainly interesting to think about, right? Because like we certainly are at a passing of the torch moment with all these young groups finding so much success, but all the OG groups, right? The BTS members, whether together or solo, Blackpink, Twice, the EXO guys, post military service in the second act of their careers. A lot of the OGs are still really successful as well, which is super cool as well. I think another notable thing to shout out is that the very strange rise of 50/50's Cupid. 50/50, hardly a hyped K-pop act, but Cupid just dominated on TikTok, and that song was so big and so ubiquitous that 50/50 was able to make a song for the Barbie soundtrack, Barbie Dreams, which I actually think is better than Cupid. Cupid is not on my list, but they're an interesting group, and then they started to fight with their labels because I think those members definitely saw dollar signs elsewhere apart from their small label. So that's kind of an interesting business angle to how things went. Of course, the Dream Academy stuff with Cat's Eye debuting from Hybe, and of course YG's Baby Monster. We're seeing a huge reality television, reality series element to the debuting of groups and making these members viral as soon as possible, basically, even if they're very young. Like the Baby Monster women are all still young teenagers, for example. That's certainly a increasing trend that I imagine will continue, because the appetite from K-pop fans just quickly adopting these new groups as soon as they present themselves. It's the labels are just kind of feeding the streets, giving the audience what they want, I guess you could say. So yeah, that's just a few things that kind of stood out to me when thinking about the year overall. But yeah, let's get into the top 10 songs. And if you want to check out any of my past reviews from this year, just see the link below for my nostalgia K-pop reviews for all the projects, albums, EPs, singles that I talked about throughout the year. Make sure you subscribe, youtube.com/nostalgiapod, because that'll continue in 2024. So just kind of a rule with my list, I only picked one song per artist for the sake of making a more interesting and more diverse list, but I'll shout out some more honorable mentions at the end. And a lot of these songs I talked about before when I reviewed the full album or the full EP, so check those out if you want more thoughts on that overall thing. So I'm going to move a bit quick just because, we got 10 plus songs to get through here. But yeah, starting with number 10 is ENHYPEN's Bite Me off their Dark Blood EP. ENHYPEN, one of the really impressive upstart groups under Hybe. This song just has, I think, really impressive vocal harmony, very up-tempo, very catchy pre-chorus into this very addictive melody, the oh my god chant. So sticky. Love the bass. The chorus, I think, is very fun. Really glamorous music video, huge production values. And ENHYPEN was a group I didn't have much of a connection to this year, but they had a monster year. 2 big selling albums, Dark Blood and Orange Blood, and they had a huge tour. They really made, I think, a huge name for themselves and are now, honestly, one of the kind of signature K-pop boy groups right now. It's certainly a competitive field, but they are very much making their name known, and they will be around a long time. I think that's kind of obvious. But Bite Me, I think that's just a really fun banger, but the vocals, I think, really stick with you on that one. So I enjoyed ENHYPEN's Bite Me quite a lot. Number 10. Number 9 for me is Red Velvet's One Kiss. I believe this is the most recent song on my list. This is off their latest album, Chill Kill, which overall I wasn't a huge fan of. But One Kiss, to me, god damn, this is kind of the craziest K-pop chorus of the year. The horns go wild. The vocal harmonies of the Red Velvet members. I think that's kind of what people think about with Red Velvet, a group that we have quite the track record with at this point, right? Just Irene and Joy, Seulgi, Wendy, like they just know how to match each other's vocals. The producers know what these women, how great they can sing, and you put that all together. And I think this chorus just goes so hard. Like I thought this was a banger the instant I heard it. I don't know why it wasn't the title track off the album, to be honest, because it was the best song on the album by far to me. And then starting off verse 2, after the first time you hear the chorus, you hear Wendy's impressive vocal range immediately. Like, I think just the vocal harmony combined with the horns going nuts on the beat, like, this is a big banger. And honestly, like, I think Chill Kill I wasn't a huge fan of as an album overall, a bit disappointing from Red Velvet, but this was such a highlight, such a standout. So shout out Red Velvet's One Kiss. So number 8 for me is Puppet Show by XG. XG. Of course, big asterisk with this one because XG, all the members are Japanese. They're managed by a Japanese company under the Avex umbrella, but they're based in Korea. They're targeting K-pop audiences, albeit they're making music mainly in English. So they're kind of a good example of how homogenized, Southeast Asian, East Asian music is becoming, where you have this group clearly conceived to participate in K-pop, even if it's like maybe not the most authentic creation of new K-pop. Compare that to, of course, all the increase in English music from many acts that we're getting with, obviously targeting Western and American audiences. It's kind of interesting, but I think XG is a example of how things are changing. And even if that was not the case, I think XG really kind of came out of nowhere for me. I had no idea who they were until this year. They had a lot of successful songs I liked, but to me, Puppet Show off their debut EP really stood out to me. I thought the hook was just very, very catchy, kind of like a sing-songy nature. But ultimately, why I think XG stands out a lot to me is they have some of the strongest hip-hop bona fides across all of K-pop. Like, these women can rap. Obviously, not all of them rap, but a lot of them do. They all have different flows. Like, they sound great, But what's fun is Puppet Show with the sing-songiness combined with another song they have, like New Dance. They're not just rappers. Like, they have really fun pop and, like, dance appeal as well. So I think there's a lot of potential with XG, and they gave us a bunch of bangers this year. So shout out XG's Puppet Show, number 8 for me. Number 7 for me is aespa's Don't Blink, which is off their second of 2 releases in 2023. aespa's a group that I've liked and appreciated aspects of, but I haven't loved to this point. I think they've at times struggled to find a cohesive identity and kind of sonic ideas to make their music, and they definitely dabbled in a lot of different ideas to this point. But to me, Don't Blink is arguably one of the strongest songs they've ever released. This is, of course, was not the title track. That was Drama off this Drama EP. To me, though, Don't Blink is significantly better and arguably one of their best songs, probably their best song since a song like Next Level, I would have to say. I think it's right up there. Just the guitar drum tempo is awesome, but just like vocally, the 4 aespa women have always been talented vocally. That has been very clear, right? Winter with her striking high notes, Karina with her amazing presence, Ning Ning and Giselle really good as well. They're a talented group, but we just haven't really had the songs match that yet. To me, though, this is the best example of using the aespa talents. You have Ning Ning and Giselle just kind of gliding in the beginning of that song, building up into this pre-chorus from Karina that's incredibly catchy. And then you have Karina and Winter kind of doubling their vocals on each other. Again, incredibly catchy. And then I think a really great chorus. One of their best choruses they've ever made. Second time you hear the chorus, you hear those like classic Winter high notes that we know she can give you like few can. Karina's rapping on the bridge really stands out to me. I think this is really just aespa at their best, and I hope this kind of song idea is something they stick to more moving forward, and less so songs like Drama, which I find just kind of grating with how repetitive the hook is. So one can hope. aespa's Don't Blink for me, number 7. Number 6 for me is Queen Card by Idol. Of course, Idol is on probably the smallest label represented on my list. That'd be Cube Entertainment. But Idol, arguably the oldest or the first 4th gen K-pop group. They're definitely the most experienced of this gen. If you put them in there, they're kind of on the border with 3rd and 4th. Either way, Queen Card really grabbed me, where this is a song that actually has one of those catchy but repetitive hooks. But to me, it's so catchy that the repetitiveness doesn't bother me. Just the guitar line on the beat of Queen Card is kind of unlike almost anything else you got in K-pop this year. Song is very up-tempo. And then lyrically, I think it's very fun with how overtly like satirizing it is to its subject matter. Of course, the classic twerking on the runway line comes to mind. And Idol, they've really, Idol in Cube Entertainment, they've really like risen up. They are a big group now. Like, they're doing big numbers. They're doing big tours. They were at KCON this year. Like, they are, I think, still almost a little underrated just because they're not one of the big 4 K-pop labels, but they're a giant group. And Queen Card, Yeah, is part of it due to the English lyrics for the most part? Yeah, I think that's a big part of it for sure. You know, notably they released a second EP this year, Heat, that was all in English, and I don't think that really landed at all. But Queen Card, like, I think the attitude of this group, the unique personality that they kind of bring to the music, and as a self-producing group as well, like I don't know, like they are, I think, one of the more interesting groups, and I really hope they continue to give us fun stuff, because this was really unlike anything else I heard this year. Shout out Queen Card. I mean, it's so catchy. It's very easy to run back. It was certainly up there on my most played songs. All right, so number 5 for me is 7 by Jungkook featuring Lotto. This is the only BTS solo song on my list. This is the fastest song to reach 1 billion streams on Spotify, breaking the record set earlier this year by Miley Cyrus with Flowers. Obviously a monster track. The reason I don't have it higher, despite the fact that I'm a big fan of the song, I played the song a lot, I really like going back to the song. I don't have it higher than 5 because 7 is very dependent on its sample. Saturday Love by Alexander O'Neal and Sherelle. A really fun sample pull, not the most famous song in the world, but the sample is so integral to the success of this song that it's hard to give this new version of it from Jungkook complete credit. So that's just why I have the song a little bit lower. Obviously, this is the biggest K-pop song of the year. And just, I think it's the catchiness is one thing. It's very fun to revisit. Jungkook kind of gliding on the song. But the explicit nature of the lyrics is quite fun to hear from the BTS guys. One of the BTS guys. BTS, of course, a bit more buttoned up, at least a little bit more conservative in the lyrics normally. It's really fun to hear something so overt as, fucking you 7 days a week, the way Jungkook tells it. So, yeah, really catchy song, complete banger. Good Lotto feature, honestly. Really didn't need it per se. Certainly wasn't expecting it. Makes more sense once you hear the full Jungkook solo album, because Jungkook has really impressively become probably the most integrated K-pop star in the history of Western music. Like, Jungkook is operating within pop music in the West, in America, like no one ever has before from Korea. He's doing that with English music, of course, but still, it's pretty impressive. Same way how Central C, who's featured on the Jungkook album, Central C is more integrated than any British rapper has ever been before. It's been very interesting to see these two really rise up this year in ways no one has before them. So, yeah, shout out Jungkook, who's off doing his military service now. I'll be very curious what his solo career looks like in the future. Obviously, BTS will reunite, but what will he continue to really pursue Western music, given all the success he's had? I'd have to imagine he would, but we'll find out in a few years. But yeah, Jungkook's 7, number 5 for me. Number 4 for me is Bomb by Treasure off their latest album, Reboot. I was not necessarily expecting to have a Treasure song impress me this much coming into the year, but Bomb, I think, really blew me away when I first heard it. This song has super catchy vocals and just an amazing chorus, arguably the best K-pop chorus of the year to me, and it really reminded me of my favorite Treasure song to this point, which is BLT Bling Like This from a few years ago, where there's just like fun pockets that Treasure can exist in where they really play with fun melody. And I think the Bomb chorus, it's a lighter vibe for sure. I wouldn't call the song a banger at all, but it still bops, it still bounces. And just the way these guys can really sing, to me, this is a song that really blows away the title track from Reboot, Bona Bona. Like this is a type of song that, like, just kind of those vocal melodies and then using the vocals as the instrument, with the beat, like that is the type of catchiness that I really appreciate. Like, it's just really good hook writing, and I really hope to hear more of that from Treasure, because I think, as much as I think Treasure, they get a bit overshadowed by some of their 4th gen peers. They're a successful group, but they're certainly not the biggest amongst their peers. Songs like this give me hope that they can really achieve some big highs with some other songs. So shout out Treasure, number 4 for me. Number 3 for me is the biggest surprise in K-pop for me of the entire year, easily. That would be NCT Do Jae-jung's Perfume. NCT Do Jae-jung is the latest NCT subunit, just 3 members featuring Doyoon, Jaehyun, and Jungwoo. And when I realized this had come out, I actually had missed the release. I was late on this. I rolled my eyes. I was like, really? Another NCT subunit? Do we really need more? They release so much music. NCT Dream, NCT 127, they're so successful already. Can NCT just like stop doing the absolute most at all waking moments of the day for just a second? Because to me, NCT has been very hard to wrap my head around, wrap my arms around, and try and get into the music, just because there's so much and there's just a lot to it. But this, Do Jae-jung's Perfume, this blew me away. This track, the title track off their debut EP, Perfume, man, this song bounces the way it gets to its verses, and it's such a refreshing change from a lot of the other big NCT singles, which I often find really overproduced and a bit too grating. You know, I think of something like Two Baddies from NCT 127, for example. But Perfume, I mean, the chorus is so catchy, but this is just pure vocal performance, this song. And I think it's so impressive the way these 3 guys, they're able to really have their vocals carry themselves, go onto the song. And then once you get to the chorus, the song really bounces, but it's all vocals. It's all harmonies. Like, the melody of it is so catchy. Like, this is a song I ran back constantly. It's up there for my most played K-pop songs of the year, up there for some of my most played songs, period. Like, this is an absolute banger. I think it's probably the most underrated K-pop song of the year. It's a successful song. It was the biggest song off this release, but it wasn't, quote, a big song. And I think it deserved to be way bigger. Because, like, I don't know how you don't listen to the first 2 minutes of the song and not just be completely wowed and grabbed by these vocals, where they give you a banger, but it's a banger with singing. You know, it's not like huge bass drops or anything. So my biggest surprise of the year, number 3, NCT Do Jae-jung's Perfume. Here we at number 2, which would be S-Class by Stray Kids. No male group in K-pop had a bigger year than Stray Kids did. I think that's kind of impossible to deny. Stray Kids had a monster year, 2 releases, 5-star, and then Rockstar very recently. S-Class is off 5-star, and Stray Kids, as a group that writes and produces their own work, they are just obviously very impressive for what they've been doing for a little bit of while now, which is that textbook, like, genre mashing, switching up song to song type sound that they have. And to me, S-Class is one of the best songs they've ever made, where there's just so much energy to this song. The way the vocal delivery goes in that pre-chorus really builds up, and then you have this really high energy electronic chorus. And then after the chorus, second verse, they start rapping. And yeah, Stray Kids can rap. They have a whole rap unit within their group. Like, this song has so much to it. The big horns at parts, the beat's crazy. They're definitely not for everyone, but they're for a lot of people because they're a huge popular group at this point. And I think S-Class, just the way they can go from like really loud energy production to like really awesome, like strong vocals, like really strong singing. Like, they always surprise you, not just track to track on an album, but literally part of the song to the next part of the song. Like, they're able to really handle that mashup feeling, that mashup vibe with their music. And this was definitely one of the most impressive K-pop songs to me of the year. And it would have been number 1 if not for, to me, with the obvious group of the year. Number 1 for me is New Jeans. Shouldn't come as much as a surprise. I'm a huge fan of them. Now, what might be surprising to some people is what song I picked for my number 1 K-pop song of the year from New Jeans. There's a lot of contenders, right? You have New Jeans Ditto, which won a bunch of awards at the K-pop Year in Awards ceremonies. You have Super Shy, gigantic hit from them. You have ETA, one of my favorite songs, also paired with Super Shy on the Get Up release. But no, I'm not picking any of those. I'm actually picking OMG, which was the OG hit that they gave us at the beginning of the year, back in January. And this, to me, is the best K-pop song of the year. I wouldn't say it's the best New Jeans song, because I think Hype Boy is really hard to beat and is probably in the new canon of some of the best K-pop songs of all time, to be honest. And I listened to a ton of Hype Boy this year. Of course, that song came out last year. So for this year, I had to pick between OMG or ETA. You know, I'm not as big on Super Shy or Ditto as others, so those really weren't in consideration for me. OMG, I think, is the one for me. I think the thing about this song, it's kind of quintessential New Jeans at this point, right? They're a group with only like 15 songs to their name or so at this point, but they've rapidly risen in such an impressive way. And a big part of that is, I think, the sound that this group carries with them, where they have a precociousness, a lightness to their music. They're not doing the girl crush vibe that's been really popular, really common with other female groups lately. That's not what they go for. And like the production, it's inspired by a lot of kind of throwback sounds, a lot of 90s sounds, some Jersey club sounds as well. They're very refreshing in how unique they feel. And to me, OMG, this is a song that, man, like this was the K-pop song of the first quarter of the year easily. Like this song just dominated, right? And I think you have to look no further than, the chorus from Hani, I think really stands out. Like her vocals on that combined with, they have some of the best choreography in K-pop right now. Not that they're the most impressive dancers in K-pop, I wouldn't say that, but like they just kind of stand out for like really, I think really fitting the songs with the choreo. And the OMG choreography I thought was really fun. And like the Hani chorus always stands out, but also Heron's part, where you kind of get into like the bridge, I guess you could say. Like her part, very catchy as well. And yeah, I mean, New Jeans, if you pick a different song for number one, no qualms. Like, but to me, like they were kind of like the story of the year, I guess you could say. And I think the New Jeans debut full-length album, when that comes, hopefully 2024, will be a huge release. So I really can't wait for that. I talked a lot about New Jeans. Checked the Get Up review. Talked a lot about them there. Talked about OMG as well. But yeah, I think they were kind of the obvious pick for me, number one. So shout out New Jeans, OMG. Now for some honorable mentions. Before we do, just kind of looking at my top 10. I had 3 Hybe songs, 3 SM songs, 1 JYP song, 1 YG song, 1 Cube song, the 1 Avex song. So I think good variety, which I wasn't really going for when I made the list, but cool to see. In terms of honorable mentions, I want to shout out The Girls by Blackpink. And that's a song that's for a mobile game. They released it when they were finishing the tour for like an in-between albums, like one-off single. I thought it was pretty good, pretty catchy, pretty fun for a Blackpink song. It's a banger. Some other songs I mentioned from artists that did make the list, like XG, I really love New Dance. New Jeans, I loved ETA. I want to shout out Jimin's Like Crazy. That's probably, after Jungkook 7, I think that's the best BTS solo song that came out this year. And impressive because it's Jimin showing you a new side of him with his music and a type of music we didn't really get from Jimin as part of BTS. So I think that one definitely deserves a lot of credit. Twice, I really like Set Me Free. Thought that was a very catchy song. NCT 127, I really liked Angel Eyes. That was a 80s like stadium rock throwback song out of nowhere. I don't know where that came from, but that song is awesome. 17, they had a big year. I really like Monster from them, which was just a straight rap track featuring all their rappers. They have great flow. That song really invokes like 90s like Slim Shady Eminem era to me in a good way. And then also Le Sserafim. To me, I listened to a lot of Le Sserafim this year. It was primarily their earlier stuff, like Anti-Fragile, for example. This year, the stuff off Unforgiven didn't quite make my list, but I want to shout out the single Unforgiven, No Return as well. They had some good songs. I'm a big fan of theirs, and I think they'll have a big year next year as well. But yeah, that's my top 10 K-pop songs of the year. Please let me know what you think of my list. What is your list? What songs did I skip? What songs did I forget? What part of my ranking is messed up? What should be higher? What should be lowered? Let me know. Of course, make sure you come back for my best music of the year, featuring my top 10 songs and top 10 albums of 2023. Of course, more music reviews, more K-pop reviews to follow. Subscribe, youtube.com/nostalgiapod. Let me know what's good, and I'll see you next time. What's up? Welcome back to Nostalgia. Dave here with my best songs of 2023, my top 10 songs of 2023. Of course, see the links below for my top 10 albums of the year and my top 10 K-pop songs of the year as well. And of course, come back for my best shows and movies, top 10s as well. But yeah, talking songs this year in music. Notably, I chose artists that I did not represent in my albums list, so keep that in mind. And all these songs, I talked about the albums they were on, so more in-depth discussion of those projects. Come back, youtube.com/nostalgiapod if you're looking for a bit more. But I'm going to overall kind of go through these songs a bit quickly because I've already talked about all of them. But yeah, let's get into that top 10. I think overall, this is a year that I think more than anything, I think about songs specifically, right? I mean, the success of songs continues to be dominated by playlists and TikTok. And I think for me, sampling, like the overt nature of really heavily referenced samples, became really big this year. Think of songs like Jungkook's 7. That song is essential to its sample, the Saturday Love sample, of course. Nicki Minaj had several really high profile samples. You had Annalie Choppa basically redoing Nelly's Hot in here. The list goes on. This is a trend that is far from new to this year only, but I feel like it almost came to a head a little bit. That being said, I'm not above picking a song with an overt sample. There's one or two of those on my list, I have to acknowledge. Nonetheless, to me, that's kind of the big takeaway with singles this year. And the safeness that I think labels and producers and A&Rs feel when they use a song that has a recognizable sample, where listeners hear that hook, and that hook is literally the hook of something they already know, something that's familiar, and thus that appeals to them because it feels safe and comforting. And in a sense, that's not what we want from art. Not that there aren't awesome uses of samples. Of course, we know the long storied history of sampling in music, particularly in rap, of course. Nonetheless, something to keep an eye on for sure, because that's been, to me, the biggest trend. So yeah, let's get into my top 10. I'll talk about some honorable mentions as well at the end. But yeah, number 10 for me is Brent Faiyaz's song Upset, featuring Tommy Rickman and Felix. Yeah, Brent Faiyaz, he's been on my list, album or song, the past 2 years at this point. Last year was his album Wasteland. The year before that, his song Gravity. I'm a huge fan of Brent. To me, Brent runs male R&B. He is the face of that scene. Incredibly impressive, given the fact that he's been a independent, self-made man to this point. Just inked a very lucrative distribution deal with United Masters. Really well-deserved. And to me, I was like, do I pick another Brent song again? Kind of play the hits for my own list making. But I couldn't keep this song off my list, man. Brent's Upset. It is so goddamn catchy. I can't stop listening to it. Particularly the very beginning, when Brent says, say fuck it at the same damn time. Like, as that beat drops in, that part right there. Like, I don't even need to listen to the features all that much, because Brent is just levitating the first 90 seconds of this song. It makes me really happy because I think it's a really special track. Yeah, so shout out Brent. Don't want to belabor the point, but I just had to represent him again. What can I say? I am who I am. So Brent Faiyaz, Upset, number 10. Number 9 for me is Holly Humberstone's Flatlining off her debut album Paint My Bedroom Black. This is an artist I had actually, I think, no knowledge of at all coming into this year, and she definitely impressed me, and I think Flatlining is the clear highlight off that debut album and the best show of the future potential of Holly, who's still a very young artist. And, I think her influences for some of her peers, like Olivia Rodrigo, for example, with her songwriting ability, her ballad writing, that part's familiar. But when you listen to a song like Flatlining, particularly when the song starts to really rise and blossom, when the production temp and the tempo pick up and Holly's vocals become dubbed, and it almost has like a hyperpop influence to the performance side of it. That moment for me was like just kind of pure brilliance, and unlike anything else I really heard from other pop stars this year. And I think Paint My Bedroom Black is a really solid debut, but to me, Flatlining, that's a song that is the best proof of concept that there is at least another level for Holly Humberstone to take and to really rise up and become a force in pop. I wouldn't say she's a force yet, but that's a song that I think really stands out, and you could stack that up against really any pop star song this year. So shout out Holly Humberstone, Flatlining. Really came out of nowhere for me. Number 8 for me is Burna Boy's Sitting on Top of the World, featuring 21 Savage, off his most recent album, I Told Them, from this past September. And yeah, this is a song that has a very high profile sample, namely the Top of the World sample by Brandy. And that sample is very present, very integral to the success of this song. In fact, the other big hit off Burna Boy's album this year, City Boys, very famously interpolating and speeding up the tempo to the production from Jeremiah's Birthday Sex. Burna Boy was in the sample bag this year. And I thought, do I pick the album for my album list? Do I pick one of the songs? What do I do? Burna Boy's Last, the single, off his album Love to Me last year. That was my number one song of the year. That was a triumphant, jubilant, happy, good time song that I absolutely adore to this day. Do I pick Burna Boy again? Just like how do I pick Brenton again? Do I pick someone I've picked before, picked recently? And Sitting on Top of the World, man, that is a song that I just revisited to a ton. It's a really effective use of the sample. I think the Burna Boy performance is awesome and makes it more than just the sample itself that you're revisiting. And then it's a really fun 21 feature. There's a version of the song that exists without 21, which I think is perfectly good as well. But 21, he's never bad, man. In fact, he really fits this well. He gives you just a different type of energy to Burna Boy. And yeah, I mean, I think this is a banger. This is something that got Grammy nominated. I was very happy to see that. And yeah, despite the fact that the sample from Brandy is so integral to the success of the song, it's a banger. What can I say? Number 7 for me is Modern Jam by Travis Scott. Travis Scott's Utopia, after 5 years of hype since Astroworld, ultimately it's an album that I was disappointed by, even if it has some high points. And the biggest high point of all with Utopia for me was clearly Modern Jam, because this is a song that so effortlessly invokes the feeling you got from Kanye West's Black Skinhead off Yeezus. Yeezus, of course, where Travis Scott became known to most of us with that early feature on Up On It. I'm In It. And to me, Modern Jam, just that beat, which is notably produced by Guy Manuel, formerly of Daft Punk, NBD, that beat is so pulsing and so fun, and Travis's performance is just so energetic and so fitting the beat. And we know how energetic Travis is as a performer, but in the studio, he's more of a vibes guy at times. We know that. He elevates his songs when he performs live. I can speak to that personally, having seen him live. Nonetheless, Modern Jam, this shit's already hype as fuck in the studio version. I can't wait to see this song live, because to me, this was kind of just a moment of brilliance on an album that overall was pretty up and down for me. Yeah, shout out Modern Jam. When it gives you the feeling of something that you really love, in this case, Yeezus for me, what can I say? It's effective. Number 6 for me is Psychedelic Switch from Carly Rae Jepsen off her latest album, The Loveliest Time, which is the B-sides album to her most recent, to this point, album, The Loneliest Time. And Carly Rae, this whole releasing 2 albums together, A and B side type projects. She did it with Emotion. She did it with the other set of albums too. This is her thing, right? And I definitely like this version better than the previous version. I like The Loveliest Time more than The Loneliest Time. And the biggest highlight of all was Psychedelic Switch, which kind of came out of nowhere because Carly Rae hasn't really made a song like this before, where this is a pulsing, like almost house song, like almost trancey beat at times. But Carly Rae, I think her energy, just as a singer, the lightness, like the fluff that she can add to a beat like this, it's kind of unlike anyone else. She's one of those pop stars that's not the absolute A-list, but has her very dedicated fan base and has been really steady at this point. And I mean, she deserves a lot of credit for just how great she has been post the Call Me Maybe virality. And a song like Psychedelic Switch, to me, I mean, this is like she doesn't have bangers like this, to be honest. This is not the type of music she usually makes. So, I mean, this really came out of nowhere for me when it was a lead single, and it's really kind of stuck around with me just as a, I think, really fun to revisit type track. So shout out Carly Rae, man. Like, I don't think I've ever picked an album first for my list before, but this is a song that just kind of wowed me just for how unexpected it was for me, given my previous relationship with her as an artist. Number 5 for me is OMG by New Jeans. Of course, this song topped my top 10 K-pop songs of the year. See the link below for 10 through 2 if you missed it. But this really came as no surprise to me. This was, I feel like, almost certain to be the number 1 K-pop song of the year when I first heard it, and really catapulted, the rapid rise of New Jeans, who only now at this point are a year and a half into their careers. And there was a lot of good picks to pick from them this year. I consider ATA as well. You'll see Super Shy on a lot of people's list. That's not a song I'm as high on as others. Ditto won a lot of awards as well for them. No, to me, OMG was kind of the clear choice from them. And New Jeans, they're the K-pop artist of the year for me. And they kind of rose beyond the general K-pop limitations that others of their peers and in the past have faced, where New Jeans gets love everywhere. They're getting love in Asia for doing what they're doing, but also finding a ton of success in the United States and in the West. Look no further than the rapturous reception they got to their first live performance in the States at Lollapalooza earlier this summer. And I think it's a song that has just a ton of like earworm, like grabbing moments, such as Hani's chorus or like the bridge, Never Let Him Go part from Heron, like really great vocal stuff, And I think in general, it's continuing the trend that New Jeans started last year, where they are a K-pop group not doing the traditional kind of played out girl crush concept, but by going more traditional, more nostalgic, and incorporating some really interesting production choices such as Jersey Club, they are really pushing the genre forward and doing something unlike basically anyone else at the time. And despite all of the fact that all of them are still teenagers, like they're very young women, and yet I think they're just making tremendous pop music. And OMG really stuck with me from the beginning of the year. And yeah, I mean, I don't know how you couldn't recognize New Jeans after the year they just had. And yeah, OMG, number 5 for me. And of course, see the links below for my best K-pop of the year, where I talked at length about this song as well. Number 4 for me is Namesake by No Name off her latest album, Sundial, from this past August. Sundial was a long time coming because the previous No Name album was back in 2018. We had been waiting. And No Name's an artist who gets a lot of attention for not being afraid to speak her mind, but also, to her credit, puts that in her music in really eloquent and impressive ways, unlike few people can. And Namesake, to me, is the clear highlight off Sundial, and one of the best songs No Name's ever made, because this is a song that is really fun to revisit, really lively beat, really like awesome song, and yet lyrically, this is a song where No Name is flaming people like Kendrick Lamar and Beyonce for performing at the Super Bowl, affiliating themselves with the NFL. And in general, she's very critical of capitalism and consumerism encroaching itself into art and into black spaces. And yet, this is a song where No Name is not doing this in a very preachy and grating way, because she's the first person to admit that she has these contradictions herself, basically lambasting herself for performing at Coachella this year after saying she would never do that and selling out basically to get a bag. And I think the fact that No Name is not afraid to throw grenades at people she thinks deserve said grenade, and at the same time isn't afraid to point out her own contradictions and own insecurities and own misgivings and failings about herself in the very next breath, that to me is what's so impressive, because she can take it as well as dish it out with this kind of judgmental music. And in general, she's just a very talented rapper. Like, I mean, lyrically, she's up there with the absolute best of them, but I think this is a song that really captures the duality of what kind of artist she is in a very impressive way. And also the song is fun to listen to. So what more do you want from an artist like her? I was really impressed with this. Number 3 for me is Sprinter by Central C and Dave, a UK rap super project as a result, giving us this. This was the lead single off it. You have arguably the best rapper right now in the UK, a status that's been held for him by some time in Dave, and then clearly the hottest and most rapidly rising UK rapper right now in Central C, and you have them combined together. Central C is able to hang with the bars with someone of the caliber of Dave. That is no small feat. And I think Sprinter, despite the fact that it's almost understated how they're going about their bars, both of them, man, the flexing on this is so damn good. I think some of the lines from Central C I think are really awesome too. Like, it's only been a year since I had these millions, and then there's really funny quotables like, I just put 9 gallons of Sprinter. I mean, honestly, like, there was nothing more blockbuster, nothing more box office with UK rap than you had with this song. And it's incredible how big it got in the United States, to be honest. Central C's popularity in the West helping catapult Dave to his biggest success over here to the date. And more than anything, and I've been saying this a lot lately, I've been so impressed with how Central C has integrated himself into the American music scene in a way no British rapper ever has before. It's incredibly impressive how big he's got. You've seen Drake take Central C under his wing at this point. But this is a song that's up there with the best song Central C has ever made, I would say. And even though it's far from the most potent lyrically song Dave's ever made, man, it's just like a really fun banger. It's really fun to revisit. And it's on a good project that has a bunch of other good songs too. So yeah, shout out Dave, shout out Central C. I never expected to get this. And we actually kind of got a follow-up in a certain sense of another blockbuster, albeit of a smaller caliber later in the year when we had the K-Trap Heady 1 mixtape. But clearly, if you're talking about UK collabs, you have to start with Dave and Central C with Sprinter. Number 2 for me is Paint the Town Red by Doja Cat, the lead single off her latest album, Scarlet. You know, I considered Scarlet on my albums list. I considered a different song on the list instead, such as Agora Hills, which was a huge highlight. But I kept coming back to Paint the Town Red, which I think is just one of the best songs Doja's ever made. You know, it's so funny because the lead up to this album, and she was talking about how critical she had been of her past music, and she didn't think her bars were up to snuff, and she's going to do more rapping and flaming her fans and doing all the Doja Cat things. Check my album review. There's a lot to get into with that. But then she gives you Paint the Town Red, where she just flexes on everyone because these are awesome bars. The song is so catchy. It became a TikTok smash sensation anyway. And she didn't even need all the fans that allegedly left her because this was one of the biggest songs of her entire career. To me, it's an absolute banger. The bars are there. And I've always been a believer in Doja Cat's bars. I'm a big fan of hers. I had Planet Her in my top 10 albums of 2021, the previous album. And to me, this is just like, this was a huge, like, arguably the biggest flex in rap this year was Doja dropping Paint the Town Red after everything that had happened between her and her fan base. And it's one of the happiest TikTok trends I've seen. Like the, oh, she's a devil, she a bad little bitch, she a rebel. That part being a TikTok trend, honestly deserved, because that part's catchy as hell, but the whole song is good. Shout out Doja Cat. Number 1, which I don't think many people will have this as their number 1. This is my most played song on Spotify in 2023. That would be Popular by The Weeknd, featuring Madonna and Playboi Carti off the HBO series The Idol soundtrack. This song is reminiscent of Justin Timberlake in Timbaland in the mid-2000s. That production, those 808s, they are humming. Weeknd absolutely spazzing on the song. Sounds great. One of the catchiest songs of the year, probably to me the catchiest song of the year, given how much I listen to it. You know, it's so funny to me because The Idol on HBO ultimately was a creative failure. I talked about that series at length. The best thing about The Idol overall was the music that came out of it independent of the show. Popular, as well as the Lily Rose Depp song World Class Sinner. Like, Troye Sivan's acting somehow being better than The Weeknd and Jenny of Blackpink's. All these like disparate things. And yet what I kept coming back to is the fact that Popular was one of the best songs The Weeknd had made in some time. And I think a pretty fun and complimentary Madonna feature, and kind of throw away like ad-lib-esque Cardi performance aside, like this is what we want from The Weeknd. This is him at his absolute strength. And frankly, I would love him to do more with this kind of production. Again, giving you those Timbaland vibes, giving you those 2000s vibes. Doing more of that, I think will be really exciting. But ultimately, this is just a earworm of all earworms, and to me, it was the biggest one of all in 2023. So shout out Popular, man. I have an Instagram reel on my IG that I used this song for, which I'm pretty proud of as well. Nonetheless, those are my top 10 songs. I'm going to get into my honorable mentions as well, but first, top 10, again, Brent Faiyaz, Upset, Holly Humberstone's Flatlining, Burna Boy, Sitting on Top of the World, Travis Scott's Modern Jam, Carly Rae Jepsen's Psychedelic Switch, New Jeans' OMG, No Name Namesake, David Central C's Sprinter, Doja Cat's Paint the Town Red, and then The Weeknd's Popular. Honorable mentions. So, Troye Sivan's Rush is one of the best songs of the year. I would have had that on my top 10, but I picked the album for my album of the year instead, so I couldn't do both. Similarly, Sampha's Only, I would have picked here, but I picked the album instead. Dominic Fike's Frisky, picked the album instead. Bad Idea, right? Get Him Back by Olivia Rodrigo, picked the album instead. Problem Fixer by Jay Huss, picked the album instead. Also want to shout out Gunna's Fuck You Mean. What a comeback single after everything that guy had been through. Meridian by Dave and Tay Cola. That was awesome. Kenny Mason's Dracula. I'm Just Ken by Ryan Gosling off the Barbie soundtrack. Satanist by Boy Genius. What It Is by Doechii. Looking for Love by Disclosure. All My Life by Lil Durk and J. Cole. What a surprise that one is. What Would Pluto Do? My favorite song from Drake off For All the Dogs. It Goes Like Na 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 by Peggy Gao. Shout out EDM. Ski Yee by Sexy Red. Cobra by Megan Thee Stallion. Try Me by Georgia Smith. Candle Flame by Jungle and Eric Arc Elliott. What a house banger that is. I mentioned World Class Sinner by Lily Rose Depp. Tinashe's None of My Business. Kalela's Contact. And yeah, see links below for my top 10 K-pop songs of the year. It's another 10 songs I liked quite a bit. Of course, make sure you check out the album list as well. And make sure you come back for my top TV shows and top movies as well. And for more reviews, subscribe. And I'll see you next time. What's up? Welcome back to Nostalgia. Dave here with my best albums of 2023. My top 10 albums of 2023. Of course, see the links below for my best songs of the year. My best K-pop songs of the year as well. Best music of 2023, getting into it. Yeah, I think this is an interesting music year where we didn't really have too many new stars appear for sure, but music overall was still in a really good spot. I think look no further than the really overwhelming success of the live touring industry this year. Of course, a lot of attention has been paid to Taylor Swift and Beyonce. Taylor Swift's The Eras Tour, the highest grossing tour in history, but even apart from the heavy hitters, no matter how big or small we're talking here, touring was up, and I mean, the cost of touring tickets was up 12-15%, no matter how big the artist was. The demand is just so high for live music. And to me, that's kind of the biggest lesson with where music's at right now. And I think everything else has kind of been a continuation of a lot of current lessons, right? Sampling has been incredibly heavy this year. Obviously, we know how influential TikTok is, how influential playlisting is on the success of songs. When you have a hit, does that necessarily mean you're a famous person, or is the song itself just the hit? A lot of familiar themes we've talked about before. There's a lot of talk about rap albums. It took a while for a rap album to get to number 1 this year. Does that actually mean anything? Country music finally making its presence felt on streaming after kind of being behind the 8 ball on that side of things. A lot of similar themes that I think people have been talking about and paying attention to for some time. But let's get right into my albums. I'm not going to talk too long on any of these albums in my top 10 because I reviewed all of these albums when they came out earlier in the year. So if you want more in depth on any of these albums, of course, come back, check that out. Those albums, youtube.com/nostalgiapod, and let me know what you thought about any of these albums, and let me know your top 10 in the comments below. I'd love to hear it. It's always fun to make a list because no matter who you are, you can make an inspired list. There's a lot of good things to pick from, and it's always hard to make one. So let's get into mine. Number 10 for me is IDK's F65, the DMV rapper. I believe this is his 3rd album back in early May of this year. And to me, this was a career best work for IDK. He's a rapper who's been, I think, impressively continuing to blossom and show new sides to himself. And he's been impressing me for a while now because he keeps exceeding my expectations. And F65, I think, arguably was the best example of that yet, where he is starting to genre flip, genre bend, of course, really dexterous with his rapping, giving you all kinds of different flows. The technical ability is impeccable. I think a song like Pit Stop is really fun. I mean, he's got songs on here where he's using background choir, which is basically just a cheat code these days. I think it's a really impressive record. I mean, thematically, there were some fun moments where he's like sampling David Croft, the Formula One announcer, and referencing the driver Lewis Hamilton. Like, did not expect to hear that in May when it came across the transom in my ears. Nonetheless, I think IDK, this is his best record. It's, I think, really fun. There's lots of enjoyable songs such as Pit Stop that you can just take away out of the album, but as a full cohesive body of work, it really stands up. So shout out IDK. I think this is one of the more underrated rap albums of the year just because IDK himself doesn't have the biggest profile as a rapper, but definitely one that can't be missed. So number 10 for me, IDK's F65. Number 9 for me is Beautiful and Brutal Yard by J Hus. J Hus came back with his third album earlier this year in the summer after not giving us something since early 2020. It had been a minute pre-COVID for him. And J Hus, of course, I think has been very exciting for a while now because he's kind of the face of like that Afro swing genre over in the UK, kind of a mix of UK rap, grime music, but also Afro beats. And that kind of just natural genre blend into its own kind of subgenre has been pretty exciting. And J Hus, I think his charisma on the mic has always shown through. But this album I thought was really cohesive. And yeah, again, just I think the pockets that you can find with an Afro swing as a type of music really lends itself to an album such as Beautiful and Brutal Yard really having a lot to it. And, I think a song to me like Problem Fixer stands out as something very catchy that you can revisit. But overall, this is an album that I think has a lot of layers to it and is really fun. UK hip hop is also represented on my songs list. Make sure you don't miss that. But what J Hus is doing feels very unique compared to some of his peers. And, he's a very successful and popular rapper in the UK, but not at the top. There are bigger rappers than him. And I think because J Hus is so adept at not just being a rapper, because Afro swing lets him into making more dancey stuff, more singing stuff, He has a collab with Drake on this album, and Drake is honestly a really natural fit for this type of music. So I think this is something that also kind of got a bit remarked upon, I feel like, in the summer, given how long it had been for J Hus. I mean, again, his last album was nominated for the Brit Award for Album of the Year. Like, there was so much hype off the last album, and I feel like this third one came and went, not in the sense that anyone didn't like it, just so much that I think people missed it. So yeah, check out J Hus, Beautiful and Brutal Yard, number 9 for me. Number 8 for me is 10,000 Gecs by 100 Gecs. Gecs giving us their first album since their debut way back in May 2019. It had been a long time for a full-length Gecs album. We had been anticipating 10,000 Gecs for some time. Of course, they'd given us music in between now and then. They hadn't been gone or anything like that. But obviously, there's a lot of hype for the return of 100 Gecs, just because they have, ever since they kind of rose up in 2018, 2019, really heralded as the face of hyperpop music. And that's kind of a label, honestly, that they've perhaps pushed back upon or been not super comfortable with what's been bestowed upon them, particularly on the internet and by critics and whatnot. Nonetheless, I mean, I had 1,000 Gecs on my top 10 in 2019. Was really hoping that 10,000 Gecs would deliver, and I think it absolutely did, albeit for reasons I didn't necessarily expect. It's less overtly hyperpop at times on this album, but they just do a lot of fun stuff. I mean, there's ska music on this, for example. They're a unpredictable duo, and I think that's why people like them so much. But you really should look no further than the very first track on 10,000 Gecs, which would be Dumbest Girl Alive. To me, one of the best songs of the year. It's actually in my top 5 most played songs on Spotify this year. That's a song that right off the bat jumps into basically the entire riff at the beginning of Coheed and Cambria's hit Welcome Home from 2006. When I heard that, it truly melted my earphones. Like, I was completely blown away by it. Other songs on this album like Hollywood Baby stand out as well, but the unpredictability of Gecs still giving you hyperpop at times and showing you why hyperpop is such a fun and eclectic subgenre of electronic music as well. I think the peerless nature of what Gecs is kind of up to, like obviously there's other hyperpop artists, but Gecs is now outside of that mold, albeit in their own unique Gecsy kind of way. So yeah, shout out 10,000 Gecs from 100 Gecs. Number 8 on my albums list. Number 7 for me is Dominic Fike's second album, Sunburn. This is an album I was certainly anticipating because Dominic Fike's debut album from 2020 was a bit of a letdown for me. Dominic Fike's been kind of hyped up as a pop prodigy, the next big thing in pop music, ever since his song 3 Nights really blew up several years ago, leading to the infamous label bidding war for his services. And Dominic Fike's certainly been around, of course, famously in Euphoria Season 2 as Elliot, and he's had a bit of a journey as well, talking about his substance issues over the course of making his last album, being on tour, making Euphoria itself. And this second album, I think, is a lot closer to the promise of what people were hoping for when we first heard Dominic Fike. That first album, although not without good qualities, was a bit of a letdown to me. Whereas Sunburn, I think, just kind of really grabs you because he has a knack for melody, like few people do. You know, his ability to write songs, but also his really naturalness on acoustic guitar. You know, just kind of light production. But also his raspy voice. I mean, he's admitted that a lot of the vocal fry he has is due to his drug use. He's basically like Julian Casablancas from the Strokes. He's made the comp himself. Nonetheless, his raspy vocals on kind of jammy acoustic music sounds really good. And there's, I mean, the song like Frisky, I think really stands out to me on this album. Songs like Mona Lisa. I mean, there are just some bangers here. And I think his brand of kind of like pop rock with just really sticky melody, like that is why people were hyped about Dominic Fike. And there's a lot of jams on Sunburn. So I'm really hopeful that Dom continues to remain in the good space he says he is in now. And I'm very excited about what's next for him because I feel like we're just starting to scratch the surface of what kind of artist he can be. But still, his second album, Sunburn, number 7 for me. Number 6 for me is Bad Bunny's latest album, Nadie Sabe Lo Que Va a Pasar Mañana. This was supposed to be an off year for Bad Bunny. Of course, Bad Bunny coming off a gargantuan 2022 with his complete global breakthrough, Un Verano Sin Ti. Bad Bunny having already been the top artist on Spotify globally before that album came out, and of course dominating 2022, and was the number 2 artist on Spotify in 2023, even though his new album didn't come out until October. It only took Taylor Swift's monster year stopping him from maintaining the feat for 3 years in a row. We know how big Bad Bunny is, but the reason Nadie Sabe is on my list for 2023, and Un Verano Sin Ti was not on my list last year, by the way, is that this is the Bad Bunny I like. This is the Bad Bunny I want to have. Bad Bunny gave us lighter music on Un Verano Sin Ti, and hard to judge given the results, right? Now, that being said, Bad Bunny has effectively gone back to Latin trap with Nadie Sabe, gone back to his roots, a la his first 2 albums. And that was not where he was at his biggest, but to me that was when he was at his most interesting. And Nadie Sabe takes you back to that, but he's also doing some new stuff as well. Look no further than his song Thundery Lightning with Puerto Rican rapper Eladio Carrion. That is a drill song where Eladio Carrion and Bad Bunny are going bar for bar trading bars. Bad Bunny's never made a drill song before, but when he made one, it was amazing. I love that song, one of my favorite songs of the year. Of course, people know songs like Monaco have become a big hit. Some of the lead singles off this have been huge hits. But to me, the fact that this is an album of Bad Bunny both looking way back to his past and doing it well, but also looking ahead and doing new genre experiments such as making a drill song. Those 2 things on the same album to me really excited me. And that's why I have Nadie Sabe from Bad Bunny on my list. Number 5 for me is Sampha's Lahai, his first album since Process came out way back in 2017. The next Sampha album had been highly anticipated by many for some time now, arguably up there with like the most anticipated future albums to come out. So like we're up there with the next Frank album, the next Rihanna album. The next Sampha album finally came earlier this year in the fall, and I think it definitely delivered. And Sampha, reminding anyone who might have forgotten why he's such a signature talent, such a unique artist, namely, and it's kind of simple, but like Sampha's singing, Sampha's vocals are just incredibly unique. They're so ear catching. They are so rich with texture. Sampha's voice is an instrument, to use the cliche. You just love to listen to the guy sing. And obviously the lead single, Spirit 2.0, really grabbed people, grabbed me. But to me, the song Only, just because that's a bit more up-tempo, you have some really fun drums on there, just a really lively beat. Sampha's singing on that, I mean, it's really hard to compare to anything. And ultimately, he's someone where it's kind of hard for me to share the admiration I have for his music, just because it's almost hard to articulate just the beauty of like listening to him sing and giving you these lush, rich albums that really don't compare to anything else you get. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of his. And, he'd made some noise in between albums with some high profile features, such as the Solange feature a while back now. At this point, of course, Kendrick Lamar's song Father Time from 2022, the Sampha feature on that, arguably the best part of the song. Whenever he pops up, he makes his presence felt. And then when you get a whole album from Sampha, like we did with Lahai this year, it's just a treat. So yeah, Sampha's Lahai, number 5 for me. Number 4 for me is SZA's SOS, which technically came out in the middle of December 2022. I originally wasn't going to include it, but I saw a lot of other people including it on their lists. And the more you think about it, SZA's SOS absolutely impacted 2023. Most of its impact was in this year. And it's also a fantastic record. Really just immediately grabs you as soon as you listen to it. And after all the hype with SZA, the next SZA album coming out, a long wait between Control and SOS, when we finally got SOS, I was actually impressed with the range SZA gave us on this. Of course, there's tons of amazing R&B songs. There's a reason SZA is the face of female R&B right now. She's great. However, I was most impressed with songs like Ghost in the Machine featuring Phoebe Bridgers, effectively an indie song. F2F, in particular, with those heavy drums. Like, the genre experimentation we got from SZA on this, I think really stands out, especially when you compare it to, like an incredibly catchy song like Kill Bill, which is one of the biggest songs of the year, 1.5 billion on Spotify at this point, crazy. And to me, my favorite song on the album, which is Gone Girl, where SZA's really ear-catching, earwormy vocals really grabbed me. Yeah, I'm a big SZA fan. I have a lot of admiration for her. And to her credit, she's really come on as a gigantic artist. I mean, doing arena tours at this point. But I think it's for good reason. Where this is an album that, yeah, maybe it's a hair on the long side, but there's really a lot packed in there. And it was certainly worth the wait. So shout out SZA, who, I think especially in a year where there wasn't a lot of new faces, the fact that she was able to come back in such a big way at the end of 2022 and stick around with 2023, I mean, dominating the #1 album sales chart for so much at the beginning of the year, deserves a lot of praise. So shout out SZA, number 4 for me. Number 3 for me is Heaven Knows by Pink Panthers, effectively the second project from Pink, credited as her debut album. Nonetheless, Pink Panthers, despite her young age, has been credited, hyped up as kind of a future face of pop music, already having a lot of extreme popularity and some big hits. Her song Boy's a Liar Part 2 with Ice Spice really made a lot of noise this year. Nonetheless, Pink, ever since her debut EP from 2 years ago, her ability to give you incredibly earwormy but seemingly future-facing pop music in short run times, giving you like verse, hook, verse in like a sub 2 minute song, I think has really caught a lot of people by surprise, especially someone who was coming up from, kind of humble SoundCloud and TikTok beginnings. And now, I think what Heaven Knows, there's just a little bit more polish, there's a little bit more sheen on this, and Pink Panthers is really happy to show you her kind of music and her qualities, a lot of digging in the crates from the production and sampling inspiration side of things. I know her UK fans really notice a lot of those pulls where us Americans maybe don't recognize the importance of some of the reference points at first glance. But Pink Panthers, for me, Heaven Knows, I mean, like her melody game is just so strong right now. I think for me, my favorite song has to be Feel Complete at this point, which I just consistently go back to. But she also has a really fun collab on here with Central C. Overall, though, I like just about the entire album, entire track list a lot. I think it's a really special record. And yet, it only feels like Pink is scratching the surface of what kind of artist she can be. She's just starting to become a live performer. She's still pretty green at that. Nonetheless, despite her young age, I think she's clearly at the forefront of the future of pop, and she's a really exciting artist. And I thought Heaven Knows was a really awesome next step from her, and just has a lot of things to revisit and enjoy about it. Number 2 for me is Olivia Rodrigo's Guts, Olivia's second album, the follow-up to her smash hit out of nowhere debut album Sour in 2021. And Olivia's Guts, I think, is clearly better than Sour. It's very much an evolution of her sound, her debut sound. But I think she takes the pop rock, light pop rock that she gave us on Sour, takes it a bit further on this, and as a result, they're just kind of, to me, there's more bangers. There's more fun songs to listen to on Guts than there were on Sour. And not that there's not a bunch of ballads on Guts as well, but I think a lot of these ballads are quite strong, When I heard this for a while, I was like, that's probably my album of the year. I don't think anything's going to top that. And I had it as my album of the year for some time, but we'll get to that in a second. I think with Olivia's Guts, I think the level up as a songwriter is fun to, I think, spend time with. She's kept it all in-house, kind of running back a lot of the things, still working with Dan Nigro as her producer, not really changing up too much stuff. And yet you have a song like Vampire, which really feels like the next step from a song like Driver's License. There's just really sticky, lines that she can say. She can curse like few people can in pop. The bloodsucker, fame fucker, bleed me dry like a goddamn vampire. Like, that's up there with the best lines of the year. And that's on your debut single your lead single for the new project, Get Him Back, really fun to revisit, really catchy. I love the playfulness to that song. And that's very much kind of in the good for you spot in this album, I guess you could say. Love is Embarrassing. All American Bitch, I think, is arguably the best pop rock song on the album. That goes pretty damn hard, honestly. She has a lot of fun energy when she gets into the pop rock bag. I mean, what more can you say about Olivia Rodrigo at this point? I think, if anything, Guts feels like a continuation for her. I'll be very curious what's next for her and if she takes a bigger leap with the third album. I mean, Guts even has the same aesthetic of the color purple that she likes to use with a lot of the branding, the way she did in the first album. I'm curious if now, and she's still very young, of course, so it makes sense that's taking some time. I'm curious what the next big step is for her. But clearly, this is a sound, this is a style that is far from played out from Olivia. I think she does it so well. But that would have been my album of the year if it wasn't for my number one. And my number one album of the year this year is Something to Give Each Other by Troye Sivan. This completely blew me away and came out of complete nowhere for me because I was really very much not a Troye Sivan fan coming into this year. I wasn't too impressed with him as an artist to this point. Particularly, I just never thought his vocals really amounted to much. But the vision that he demonstrates on Something to Give Each Other, and as a result, the production choices that he makes, really fits his strengths as a singer. And that overall vision that he gave us with this album really impressed me. And I think it's a really fun album to revisit. Starting right off, you have the lead single Rush, which is just a absolute club banger. A song just kind of about the euphoria of having a night. Very flashy and at times polarizing music video accompanied it. But that is a song that's just going to be a club staple forever. I was so happy to see it get Grammy attention, by the way, and get a nomination, just because I think that's definitely one of the best songs of the year. It would have made my top 10 songs of the year list as well, but I like to differentiate, so I had to honor the album overall. Rush is a damn smash. And when I heard that out, I was like, who is this Troye? Because this is not the Troye I recognize to this point. And then you listen to the album, track 2, What's the Time Where You Are? Man, that beat goes. Using that Troye Baby DJ ad lib as well. I think that song is so damn good. One of Your Girls also really grabs you. Still Got It. Got Me Started with the really noticeable, overt Bag Raiders sample flip, really in your face there. Shout out Australia, Troy's home. I think it's just a record that really rewards multiple listens because it has such sonic cohesion to it. And for the most part, it's very upbeat, very fun, very lively. I mean, there's moments where he has his singing backed up by church choir. And I'm like, God damn, is the cheat code for many? But to hear Troye Sivan do that on this album where he was already flexing with a lot of his decisions, I was just really impressed with it. And it's the album I found myself going back to as an album the most this year, and that's why I think it had to be my album of the year. And again, I did not see this one coming into this year because I was not a big Troy fan to this point. So yeah, that's my top 10 albums of the year. I'm going to review real quick. Number 10, IDK's F65. Number 9, Jay Has Beautiful and Brutal Yard. Number 8, 100 Gex, 10,000 Gex. Number 7, Dominic Fike's Sunburn. Number 6, Bad Bunny's Nadie Sabe Lo Que Va A Pasar Mañana. Number 5, Sanva's La High. Number 4, SZA's SOS. Number 3, Pink Panther's Heaven Knows. Number 2, Olivia Rodrigo's Guts. Number 1, Troye Sivan's Something to Give Each Other. Some honorable mentions here. Doja Cat's latest album, Scarlet. No Name's latest album, Sundial. I may have picked songs from those albums instead, thus didn't consider them for my albums list. Also wanted to shout out Carolyn Polachek's album, Holly Humberstone's impressive debut album, Kalela's comeback album, Raven. Then also on the dishonorable mentions, albums that disappointed me this year. I have a list I want to get to for sure. Starting off, how about Janelle Monáe's The Age of Pleasure? I'm a big Janelle fan. The previous Janelle album, Dirty Computer, topped my list in 2018. I was just let down. I didn't revisit it all that much, and I just didn't think it was kind of up to her really high standard, unfortunately. I really tried to do I pick a song to get her on the list, but I just couldn't talk myself into representing the album at all, unfortunately. Also on my dishonorable mentions list, Travis Scott's Utopia. After all that hype from Astroworld, I just didn't think it quite delivered. Not that it wasn't without merit, but just didn't quite hit the highs I needed it to. Also, Ray Shremmerd's latest album, Shrem for Life, which I liked at the time, but just didn't find myself revisiting as much as I would have hoped as a big Ray Shremmerd fan. Also, Macklemore's solo album, Ben, which, not that I had high hopes for it, but just really came and went for me. And lastly, on my dishonorable mentions, I have to shout out Kaytraminé, the Kaytranada and Amine collab album. I thought that was just a gigantic dud. Honestly, Kaytranada's beats were okay, but not anything special per his standard. And Amine's rapping was just really kind of lazy to me, and certainly below his standard as a really awesome rapper. So yeah, that one really just didn't land. And I thought that was going to be a summer staple, the way that was kind of trending with the Forever single, but no, didn't work. So yeah, those are my top 10 albums of the year, and some albums I didn't like as much as well. Of course, see the links below for my top 10 songs of 2023, and also my top 10 K-pop songs of 2023. And of course, stay tuned for my top 10 TV shows and top 10 movies of the year as well. Let me know what you think of my list, tell me yours, and for more reviews and year-end content, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Alright, that's going to do for the pod this week. Again, make sure you come back for my best movies and best TV shows of the year coming soon as well. And of course, later this week, and of course next week as well, I'll be talking Aquaman, Bradley Cooper's Maestro, Zack Snyder's Rebel Moon, and the new rom-com with Sydney Sweeney and Glenn Powell. So 4 more movies as well coming soon. Make sure you subscribe, youtube.com/nostalgiapod, linktree.com/nostalgiapod. See links below, see the playlist below. Let me know what's good, and I'll see you next week.